What's up, hockey fans? Happy Monday. Hope all the fathers out there had a great Father's Day yesterday, especially you, Colby. This is Morning Cup of Hockey. That's Colby Cohen. I'm Johnny Lazarus. We are presented by Betway. If you're going to place a bet on Betway. Please play responsibly. And remember, you must be 19 years of age or older. We got Tyler Yaremchuk coming on again like he does every week now throughout the Stanley Cup Final and the Western Conference Final, honestly, to talk Oilers and the party in Edmonton on Saturday night, because that was one special ass whooping in Game 4 for the Oilers. But before we do any of that, Colby, just your initial thoughts on Game 4, how you're feeling going into Game 5, even though it's tomorrow night. But how was the weekend? How was Father's Day?
It was a good weekend. You know, we're pretty low key, and we're going on a little trip down south here on Tuesday. We're heading down to Florida for a couple of days to see my family. I know when I've told other people we were doing that, they're like, "Oh, you're going down there for the festivities," and we're not. That's not why we're going down. But you'll see, starting Wednesday, I'll have a little bit of a different backdrop here for the show. So nothing. You know, we did a little family breakfast yesterday. It's my wife's birthday today, so that's where all the focus and lies. You know, we got lots of stuff going on for that. So I will say this: the double day without hockey continues to bother me. I mean, I get why they have to do it. It's the right move. But you know, that double day goes out, really kind of throws your schedule off. And, you know, in game, what was it? What was the game where you were worried about the plane legs? Was that game
That was
three?
Game
three, where Florida came out with that smothering first period and just like an absolute smothering effort in Edmonton. And we were like, well, Edmonton's going to score early in the game. And I mean, here's what I would say. Now,
I've gotten every bet wrong in this series.
Switching gears to hockey now a little bit. And you know, I appreciate you asking that, Johnny, and you know, love to all the dads in our show. But Game 4 looked like what we thought we would see in Game 3. You know what I mean? And imagine had that effort been the effort in Game 3, and then all of a sudden it's 2-1 with Game 4 in Edmonton. Now I know we're past Game 4, but I'm just saying, you know, that is what we've expected to see kind of all series long. We saw it for about, you know, I don't know, I would say 2 periods, not quite like that, obviously, in Florida, you know, in Game 1, but we saw Edmonton's individual speed. And I think going into this series, Johnny, something that I know I've said, and I've heard it repeated on different, I think PK Subban was talking about it on TV. And, you know, we were talking about this in the beginning of the series. Individually, sure, like the individual speed of the players on Edmonton really can't be touched by anybody in the league. Maybe Colorado has that type of speed, but you know, Florida plays like a faster team the way they get going north, right? So I think Game 4 was really the first time we've seen, you know, the Edmonton team as a whole, and not just McDavid and you know, not just Draisaitl, but you know, they made, you know, Florida uncomfortable with their gaps. They forced them to, you know, get stuck between should I go, should I back off in the neutral zone. And as we welcome in here, you know, Tyler Yaremchuk from, you know, Oilers Nation, from Daily Faceoff, one of the big voices of our platform. So you can bring him in here, Vic, and we'll just make him a part of this conversation. Good morning to our pal out in Edmonton, who I know is in a better mood today than he has been to start this series. You could see that big smile on his face, Tyler. But you know, what I was just saying with Johnny was that was what we sort of expected to see as this series came back to Edmonton for Game 3. They finally put Florida in uncomfortable positions. They made their defensive core look, you know, like a group that doesn't even skate that well. Their gaps were off. Their decisions were half a second late. I mean, you know, we talk about being physical. One of the reasons Florida can be physical all the time is because their reads are usually so well timed. Every goal, right? And I went back and watched all 8 of them. There's just, Florida's like a hair off from winning a battle, a hair off from making a play defensively, a hair off from body contact. And I think a lot of that has to do, Tyler, with the speed and the way the Edmonton Oilers made them uncomfortable, you know, really through the neutral zone.
Yeah, and that was my point yesterday on. And sorry, my voice is a little.
This guy's been
groggy
partying.
I wonder
today.
why. I wonder why.
But yeah, I felt like, again, the Oilers' success in the offensive zone, you nailed it. I said it yesterday on my show, but it started in the neutral zone for the Oilers. Edmonton finally got a chance to unlock their speed a little bit. And then when they got their chances, they were way, way, way better at finishing them off. And if you go look through those first 5 goals, the Henrique goal, upstairs on Sergei Bobrovsky, the McDavid goal, upstairs on Sergei Bobrovsky, Darnell Nurse goal, upstairs on Sergei Bobrovsky, even the Dylan Holloway goal, when you watch it at first glance, it just kind of trickles in. But when they show the reverse angle, he elevates it. It goes up and under Bobrovsky's arm, hits him, and then trickles in along the ice. He went upstairs. So I felt like the Oilers did a lot of things that they can kind of hopefully copy and paste moving into the next into game 5 here. Like, go upstairs on Bobrovsky, skate as fast as you effing can through the neutral zone, and you'll get this Florida blue line to panic a little bit.
Well, even with that too, Tyler, like I felt every goal besides the Nurse goal came from at the top of the crease too. And I know a lot of them are off the rush, but something that Edmonton hasn't really been able to do, which Colby and I have talked about, is get on the inside of Florida. And every single goal came from the net mouth, right? Like I'm trying to think of one that didn't outside of Nurse. And, just being an Oilers fan, I want to ask you, I feel like the answer is kind of obvious here, but if the teams were going to split going back to Florida, is this kind of the way you would have wanted it? If Edmonton had won game 3 and lost game 4, it's probably deflating going back to Florida, but there's been an uplift, it feels like, right? Within the team in the city.
Oh man, I mean, within the city, absolutely. Like 3
Videos were insane. Yeah.
It's crazy. And I know there was that one guy from Florida who was like, oh, the Oilers fans are celebrating like they won the Stanley Cup.
I know, David. He's a good guy. I don't think he meant it that way.
Yeah. Like, all right, buddy, this is what happens when a real hockey market celebrates a playoff win. Like, sorry, everybody didn't go drive back to their beach houses and go to bed by 9 o'clock. But anyways,
I don't know if that's a fair categorization, but all right, we'll let you get away with it.
Come on. I can throw a little bit of something out there after he sends that. But the city was absolutely on fire. And that Connor McDavid line of when he spoke after the game, he said, we're going to drag him back to Alberta. Like, I love that they have that kind of mindset of like, first off, we didn't want you to celebrate the cup on our home ice. And now guess what? We want you to make that flight again. Edmonton's got to make it anyways. They got nothing to lose.
Yeah.
Like, we want you to have to load up the plane, sit in it for 6 hours, come back up to Alberta. Like, that mindset is unbelievable. And there's just so much to love about that hockey game last night and even this play here. I mean, Connor McDavid kind of putting the nail in the coffin to make it 4-1. It was just a super fitting game from a vibes perspective. And then you layer that with everything they did on the ice that, again, hopefully they can continue into game 5. And it's, you start to feel a little good about this team.
Well, and look, I say this on our show all the time, and I think people are probably used to hearing me talk about the razor thin margin that is the difference in hockey games. And look, I know that was an 8-1 shellacking, right? But let's go to the first 5 minutes of that hockey game. All right. Darnell Nurse, knee on, leg on leg, right? With Sam Bennett. And I will say this, I thought they messed that up initially. I thought this should be a 5-minute penalty. It's a no-brainer. And then as I started to look at the replays a little bit and I watched how Bennett, he completely moves to avoid the hit, right? It's not like he stayed on his path, and you could almost see Darnell Nurse lean in and then all of a sudden, like almost he just misses him. Ray Ferraro was sure that it was a 5-minute penalty on our ESPN broadcast. And look, Ray Ferraro knows, like, usually he is somebody that I trust his eyes, right? But the more I watched it, I said, you know what? I think that they got this right. I really did. And what I would say, Tyler, is what a difference. You put Florida on the power play, 3 minutes into the hockey game, and you come out of that with a shorthanded goal brought to you by 2 fourth-liners, right? Connor Brown makes a phenomenally poised play on this goal. And Verhaeghe, this is what I'm talking about when I say Florida was just a second late, right? Verhaeghe's a second late there. And look at the poise and the patience as ESPN, brings us this video from their replay. But, you're sitting in the building and you guys go down shorthanded 3 minutes into this hockey game. That couldn't have been a comfortable feeling for an Edmonton Oiler fan.
No, I do agree. I thought the Nurse hit was way worse than the Warren Fogle hit that got him 5 in a game. I was convinced they were going to keep that one as a 5-minute major, and I was like, oh man, if this is, I was saying it to some buddies I was watching the game with. I was like, if this is Darnell Nurse's last moment as an Oiler, oh boy. But it ends up being a 2, and the one thing right before that replay, Florida hits 2 goalposts like dead on. It wasn't like glancing off the outside of the post. Skinner had the coverage, and they were trying to just put in the corner, and like the posts that are kind of like, that's a cheeky goal post. I don't think we count that as a close chance. Like, no, they came within like an inch of scoring twice in the matter of 5 seconds. Play goes back down the other way, and Matthias Janmark's shot, when they show again, there's like a reverse angle of it. It is missing the net by a
Colby
foot.
said that.
He
this morning.
shoveled it wide, didn't
Yeah.
he?
Like he missed, he whiffed on that chance about as badly as you can whiff on that chance, and yet ends up finding the back of the net. Again, hockey gods, I guess, didn't want that one to be a sweep, because as good as the Oilers played and as dominant as they were, even when the game was 2-1, I think Florida hit another post, if I'm remembering correctly. I'm trying to think about who shot it. Like, Florida hit a handful of goalposts in the first. Darnell Nurse doesn't get a 5-minute major. Shots that are going wide of the net are going in on Bobrovsky, who was, otherwise unbeatable through 3 games. It's just everything lined up, man. It was all Oilers.
Yeah, but also another play too that I think has gotten lost a little bit is that Skinner save on Verhage, I think at 2-1.
That has not gotten lost. That's the save of the
No,
year for him.
But I feel like that hasn't really, because of the 8-1, because of the offensive outburst. I think that save, it's a 2-1 game at that point.
It's 2-2 if that goes in, and who knows what we're talking about right now.
Well, that's what I'm saying, and I think Skinner, while we talk about the Oilers offense, coming alive, maybe Skinner also has now found something where he could just steal one here in Florida, right? Like, you're asking your goalie to steal one.
Well, he did it. He did it in the Dallas series.
That's all it takes. And this save right here, great job by Vic teeing it up. I mean, courtesy of ESPN, Skinner just gets across with his glove. I think it's going in when I'm watching it where I was, and I could not believe he came up with that save. But what was the building like then? Because I don't know if I know most buildings have like a chant for their goalie, but I haven't been able to capture anything through the TV if there are like Skinner chants from the fans when he makes a big save or not. Is there a thing that they do in Edmonton or no?
Stu. It's just
That's
Stu,
what they do?
and then they have then on the big screen the letters Stu come across, and a little mustache bounces on top of them. It's very fun.
Oh, that's cool.
The Oilers like in-game animations are hilarious. Every player has like a custom thing on the scoreboard when they score or when
I saw that was like Fogle, right, in Game 3 or something. I saw a video.
Fogle. But yeah, the building was going crazy on that one, and it was almost like that was. I don't want to say that was like a turning point, because again, they were already up 2-1 in the game, but like that goes in, it's 2-2. And while we're sitting here right now talking about an Oilers team and an Oilers offense that's now very confident, in that moment, you're still a little fragile. It's still early in that hockey game. You're only up 2-1. If that one goes in, I feel like you would have come out of the first period tied at 2 going, are you kidding me? Like, we might have just thrown them our best pitch for the last 20 minutes and we still couldn't come out of it with a lead. So you mentioned Stuart Skinner just got to go to Florida and steal you one. That's the beauty of this best of 7. It really is the mindset that you need to have if you're the Oilers. Game 5 is now your game 7, right? Last game was your game 7. Okay, now game 5 is your game 7. You just got to go
said,
play a nice, clean 60 minutes and then move on. And you're like Connor said, dragging them back to Edmonton. And I talked to Frank, and Frank covered that 2011 Flyers Bruins series. That was a reverse
10.
And
10.
Oh, sorry, 2010.
10.
And I asked him, like, when was the point where you felt like momentum finally shifted and the pressure went to the other side? And Frank said it wasn't until about halfway through game 6. And then I asked Frank again yesterday, I said, can the Oilers flip that sooner than maybe the Flyers did? Like, if they come out and are up 2-rip 5 minutes into game 5, and that's my little fantasy land I'm living in. I was like,
come on.
Does it flip earlier? And Frank said, absolutely. He agreed with me. Like, if Edmonton can come out in the first 5-10 minutes of game 5 and really bring it to Florida and maybe get a couple, and maybe it's a couple lucky ones like they did in game 4, like, I think you're in Bobrovsky's head at that point. I think the Panthers are really back on their heels, and they can grab hold of this thing maybe a little bit sooner than we thought.
Yeah, so we do have some people talking about this in the chat saying, do you think the tide has turned? New York Marines asking me, do I believe in momentum game to game? Look, I'm going to be completely honest with you, Tyler. Like, that was an unbelievably entertaining game, but I don't believe the tide has turned. I think Florida, I think it's great for us to talk about. It's great for the media. I've said it from the beginning. I want to see 7 games in this series. I'll be thrilled to death if we can get to game 7. But we also got to remember that, the Florida Panthers have been the cream of the crop all year. I mean, in the East. And there's a reason they have a 3-1 lead. Okay. There was a lot of pressure it's hard to close out, no matter where you are. Give the Edmonton building a lot of credit and the fans a lot of credit, because I do believe that, the players fed off the energy, and you could see the ball started to roll, and you could almost see the frustration and the mistakes that we haven't seen from Florida mounting. I mean, I wrote down, all the goals and all the mistakes from the game, and the amount of times that the 2 names of Ekblad and Forsling show up on the 8 goals, it's a little bit scary. I don't foresee them getting those opportunities again. So I think the next game is going to be a lot tighter. I like I said, I want to see Edmonton claw back into the series, but I'm not sitting here ready to say that I believe that, Edmonton has the momentum or Edmonton has got them where they want them or anything along those lines. But Tyler, you and I don't want to call it we didn't argue about this, but we were just going back and forth on text on this, where I think you saw Connor Brown's comment about, they've held the series for a majority or whatever he said. I said, I don't know what he's smoking, where you felt like he was right. Okay. So I want you to maybe explain to everyone, if you don't mind, and I might give you some pushback as to why you think Edmonton has held play for a majority of this series, as Connor Brown said.
Yeah, and I don't think I would maybe go as far as Connor Brown did in saying, they've held play for majority of the series, but I didn't think his comment was as egregious as you maybe thought it was. You go back to game 1, they were the better team for pretty much all
2
three
of the 3
those
periods, for sure, in my opinion.
2 of the 3 at least. You go into game 2. Game 2, I guess, was probably the ugliest one of the bunch if you're the Oilers. But again, in that one, you were up 1-0 after the first period. Like, you were feeling pretty good after the first 20. So you could argue that through the first 6 periods of that series, they split them 3-3 if you're keeping score in some weird kind of way, I guess. And then in game 3, again, I thought the first period was good for the Oilers. They pissed their pants in the second, and then they come out in the third and have a really, really strong electric pushback. So again, you could say 2 of those 3, they were the better team. So speaking factually, out of 9, they were the better team in 5 of them. That's the majority, Colby.
But I think that's where we part ways a little bit. I don't think when you're down by 3 and you push, I don't think that counts. That's human nature. And I think when you make your 8-minute push in a period or 10-minute push, I'm not willing to give a team that period yet. So I think it's been a lot heavier handed towards Florida. But again, Edmonton did convincing way that I think they've re-injected belief into the hockey world that they can pull this off. And, we saw what they did in the Dallas series when they needed to buckle down and win an ugly game 2-1, where they were grossly outshot and outpossessed, we'll say, puck wise. They did it, right? And so if you're looking for a little bit of hope, whether you're an Oiler fan or a hockey fan that wants this series to get extended, that's the hope that you can kind of tee off on. My one last question I'd like to ask you before I give this back to Johnny, and I'm sure there's just a couple of other things we'll hit on with you, but if you had to pick an unsung hero in this series, Tyler, maybe for both teams, but you could start with Edmonton because I know you're a lot more focused with them. Who is the unsung hero for Edmonton? Because there have been some names in the bottom, guys that we as the hockey world have been critical of all season that I think have stepped up in big moments throughout these playoffs.
Can I make a guess who Tyler's going to say?
Sure.
I'd rather you didn't.
Okay.
Do it.
I think Tyler wants to put 13 in the rafters after game 4, no?
No, come on. Who is it, Tyler?
The unsung hero so far for this team, it's a duo, but we call them Brown Mark. It's Connor Brown and Matthias Janmark.
I was close.
The penalty kill's been so good. Like, even it's a massive reason why they won that Dallas series. And Connor Brown and Matthias Janmark play more on the penalty kill than pretty much any other forward. And I'm looking here in this cup final again. Oilers PK has been great. The score is 1-1 when the Oilers are shorthanded in this series. And Matthias Janmark, 1042 at 4v5, more than any other forward. Second on that list is Connor Brown. Those two guys kill more penalties than anybody. I think a massive kind of rollover from that as well, or something that comes from that, is out of a PK, they can go Connor Leon Nuge, Connor Leon Hyman, because they don't need to do the final 30 seconds. Draisaitl's got to go out and win a draw and be out there for 30, 40 seconds of a PK, because they can just trust Brown and Janmark to kill like over a minute of every penalty they have to kill. So those two have been great. And then also, like you called them fourth liners, it's that team's third line right now. Like when you kind of look at the minutes and the usage, that trio actually played more together as a trio than any other Oilers line last game.
Fair
So they're using them as a third line now with Henrique centering them. So they've worked their way up. And it's just been so many years in Edmonton where you get into the playoffs and there's absolutely nobody producing but Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, and they're just out there on an island every night. And to have that duo actually giving you something at 5-on-5 on top of the, call it what it is, elite penalty killing that they've been giving you now for almost 3 full rounds, like, it's unbelievable. Edmonton's needed a performance like this in every run they've been on in the Connor McDavid era, and this is the first time they're finally getting it. And it's two guys who stunk. They were garbage for basically all 82 games in the regular season, and they flipped a switch and found a way to be like not just above replacement level. They've been like really damn good for, again, almost 3 full playoff rounds now.
I kind of want to feed off that, and you know, you mentioned the game 5 dream that you had of being up 2-0, but let's just pretend game 5 does not go Edmonton's way. Series is over. What does game 4 mean for just Connor McDavid in Edmonton? Because you were kind of waiting for that goal to happen, and you were not questioning whether Connor can do it in the big moment. He's done it, right? But the fact that he gets the goal, he puts up 4 points, he breaks a Gretzky record. You know, how much did he need that?
Yeah, and I'm hoping it's woken him up a little bit as well. But I mean, just from a fan
it's hard to say he was sleeping though, right? Like he just the production wasn't there, but he was still, you know, playing his game.
He wasn't getting it done. Let's not sugarcoat it. He's the best player in the world, but he wasn't getting to the inside. He wasn't scoring goals. He wasn't setting up goals. Like he wasn't. Look, the bar for him is higher than for everyone else. All right, which is a privilege because he's so damn good. All right, so let's not sugarcoat it. We're not being haters. There's no hating on this guy ever, but we're just being honest about it. And he was phenomenal in game 4. Sorry, Tyler, go ahead.
Yeah, he was great. Listen, from like a pure fan perspective, getting that win, getting the celebration on home ice, and getting to go out on a Saturday night and see thousands of Oilers jerseys ever, amazing. And now Flames fans, Canucks fans can't chirp the Oilers with you got swept in the cup final. You didn't get swept. I feel like that's a nice win for the fan base. And, no more of those graphics of like Jay Beagle has more career Stanley Cup final goals than Connor McDavid. It's like, okay, we've killed a couple of the narratives. Like, you didn't fully choke away this opportunity here in the cup final. And that feels good. For the rest of the series, like, I've watched Connor McDavid enough throughout his career, man. When he goes into this sort of video game mode, when he gets to that 110% level that nobody else in the league can get to, he changes hockey games. And I won't even say he changed that hockey game all that much in game 4 just because they got so much support scoring. But you talk about game 5, the margins are going to be razor thin. I would bet a significant amount of money, and maybe Betway, I'll be heading over there and doing that, on this being a 1-goal hockey game either way. I just think it's going to be super tight. And what that means is one play is likely going to change the game. I like Connor McDavid right now, considering how well he played last game. I like him to maybe be that one guy who can change the game.
Yeah. I like that. Kobe?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's certainly given us something to talk about. Give the Oilers a lot of credit. I did think it was interesting, Tyler, how as that game sort of went off the rails a little bit, Florida started to, chop it up, we'll call it. Tkachuk, Bennett, they end up on that 5-on-3. That's where the Nuge goal comes off of. I still think Leon Draisaitl has more to give. Like, I thought, even though the team exploded in that game, I still felt like he's not quite at his normal level. But One thing I want to ask you about, we were talking about this off camera, and I was being probably a little bit harsh on the Edmonton Oilers. So I'm curious to get your take on this. I feel like the way Florida handled this loss, the way they sort of, let's just call it, gooned it up a little bit, right? I had no issues with it. That's what I think I'm used to seeing in a playoff game that's lopsided, whether it's a cup game, whether it's a second round game, whatever the case may be. This is kind of what I'm used to seeing when it's 5-1, right? And I'll give Edmonton credit. They didn't retaliate. There was this scrum courtesy of ESPN where, they were taking quite some liberties at Connor McDavid. Do you think maybe Edmonton could have done this a little bit earlier in this series, Tyler, where when these games were, especially in the game 2, like, does this show a little like FU pushback, or is this stuff overrated in your mind? And does it not really something that phases you?
Edmonton's just never been that team. Like, you look at McDavid there, like, he's laughing in Bennett's face. And
they're buddies, right? Aren't they?
Yeah,
Oh,
they are.
yeah.
They grew up playing minor. They were line mates from the ages of like 8 until 15. But I think that's kind of the way Edmonton should take this. And I think that rolls back to my conversation about, you can sit there and say, hey, Florida went and took their liberties, and they said, if we're not coming out of here with a win, like, we're going to take a chunk out of them, right? And they tried to be that mean Florida, and that's great. I think you can also spin that and say Florida came unglued a little bit. Shit wasn't going well, and they lost their cool a handful of times in that hockey game. And that goes back to my conversation of the first 5 minutes of game 5 is going to be massive, because Edmonton's power play, it's woken up a little bit now. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins got that goal. If you can get up on them early and you can get Florida feeling frustrated again, I'm cool with Connor McDavid laughing in Bennett's face while he gets popped up top. Like, doesn't matter. Go to the box. They got a 5-on-3. They scored on it. Like, the best way for Edmonton to get back at these teams is, not to take a whack at them and go off and have it be 4-on-4. It's to sit there and laugh and take the power plays. And if Florida's going to run around and kind of be greasy like they have all series, and then flop anytime they get touched in a way they don't like, Edmonton can keep taking the power plays. I don't see a problem with that.
And I'll give the officials credit, especially on that play. Normally they like to just make it easy and take both guys. I can't tell you how many times we've seen that, or it's even happened to me in my career where, you're in a scrum and you're just like letting the guy hit you because you want to get on the power play, and then they take you to the box too, and it's infuriating. So I don't remember. Was it's obviously been a couple of days. Was it Rooney and Herbert the other night in game 4? No, I can't remember which duo it was in game 4.
It was a Kazari game.
It was a Kazari game. Okay, yeah, I know they've been rotating, but
it was Rooney and Herbert. Sorry.
So I give them credit, honestly, for their patience on that play and really following and watching that play, because what should have happened on that play. It shouldn't have been. Those were plays where you're trying to drag other guys into the box, and to not let them have it happen was good stuff. So, the last thing I have for you, Tyler, is not actually cup related. It is Edmonton Oilers related. And I saw Frank talked about this on DFO Live with you. He talked about it on ON every day. And then I know you guys talked a lot about it. The reports that, Leon Draisaitl full intention is to get an extension done and be an Edmonton Oiler for the next 8 years. And then, Connor McDavid there soon to follow. What did you make of that whole thing? I mean, I have been someone who, again, without any connection really other than you guys, like, I don't talk to, management in Edmonton and stuff like that. I don't really know those guys like I do some of the people out east, but was that relieving for you to hear that stuff? Was there ever a doubt for you that he may go want to, see what's out there and see if there was a sunny beach he could play on somewhere, or we've always heard rumors that his girlfriend is either she's an actress or she's a model or something like that, and she wants to be in a, whatever, in more of a prime time area for that type of thing. So what did you make of those reports coming from Frank? I think, look, Frank's very hooked up in Edmonton. I mean, his connections into management there, I think, run pretty deep. So I happen to trust, his report on that, like, undoubtedly.
I wasn't like relieved when he said it the other day on my show, just because I've never been that worried that Draisaitl will leave. In a twisted way, I almost feel like if they win the cup this year, then there's a greater chance that he goes, okay, Connor and I got the mission done. I want to go see if I can do it by myself. I want to grow my own name and my own brand and my star power. I'm going to sign in New York or whatever. Maybe if they would have won the cup, but if they don't win the cup, you don't have that mission accomplished feeling. And like him and Connor McDavid aren't just dynamic on the ice. Like they spend every minute away from the ice together. And when they're playing, their girls are sitting together, watching every game together, and their girls are best friends. Like they're so tight knit. And I also think if you're Leon Draisaitl, like you gotta maybe before you make the call of I'm gonna walk, if he were to do it, I think you have a look in the mirror moment where you kind of go like, in my office, if I'm sitting in my office in LA, is whoever I'm playing with there finding me backdoor the way Connor McDavid does? No. Like the grass isn't always greener, and you're never going to get to play with a player as talented as Connor McDavid. And no team's going to pay you as much as the Edmonton Oilers will because they can give you that 8th year. So you won't make more money anywhere else. You won't get to play with a better player anywhere else. And do you really want to leave your boy behind in Edmonton while you go run off to, again, LA or Florida or whatever? I just never believed it was truly a possibility. So when Frank said it, it was like, nice, good to know that behind the scenes things are on track, but I was never concerned.
Yeah. And with that too, Tyler, I know you talked about it on your show as well, but how awesome has this for you just being able to have everyone kind of see what Edmonton is like this time of year? I know you've talked about it, but I wanted you to kind of say it on our show too, because we probably have a lot of people listening that might not tune into a lot of Oilers specific content, but just for me personally, seeing it through the TV, I know I haven't been there, so I've never been to Edmonton, but Saturday night looked like it was fucking unbelievable. Honestly, I can't think of a better way to say it.
Yeah, man. So I said this off the start of the series, and you see, like the Chicklets guys are coming through, the big ESPN broadcast is coming through, like all these people are coming to Edmonton. And in the hockey world, when they come to Edmonton, usually it's -30, it's February, it sucks, everything's miserable, the sun's only up for 6 hours a day. And I talked about how excited I was for everyone to experience the city the way like we get to experience it from May until October, really, where like it's bright out until 10:20 at night.
Yeah, I saw that. After the game last night, the sun was still out, or Saturday night, the sun was out.
Yeah. Like you can't go to bed until basically 11 o'clock in Edmonton right now because the sun is out and it's bright. You can tee off, Colby. You'd love it up here. You can tee off at 6:30 and you're comfortably getting your 18 holes in by the end of the night. It's unbelievable. Like Edmonton right now is the best, man. The days are long. The weather is perfect. Everyone's in a good mood because we're out of our kind of winter slumber. And I was so excited for people to experience a city like this. And for it to have gone away without everyone getting to experience, like that one guy did, how the city reacts to an Oilers win. Like, buddy, we're going that crazy when they beat Dallas. We were going that crazy when they beat Vancouver. Like, the city's on another level when the Oilers get this deep, and the city's so great this time of the year. So it was an unbelievable weekend. Everyone, even yesterday, everywhere you go, everyone's talking about, you got a chance, you got a chance, you got a chance. Like, it's the best right now. So yeah, I love Edmonton, man. I love the way they get behind the Oilers, and I'm happy other people are kind of getting to see all the things I've seen in the past of what makes this place the best.
What would the energy in that building be like in Game 6 if they can do this in Game 5? But I don't want to make it seem like I'm just saying as far as the excitement, because I feel like there definitely was nervous energy in Game 4, but would there be even more nervous energy knowing they're actually fully back in it?
No, I think it would just be like you're playing with house money at that point. If you were to get another playoff game at home out of this run, I think it would just be like so unexpected, and that crowd would be just so stupid loud and behind the Oilers. I don't think there would be the same nervous energy as Game 4.
All right, well, Tyler, we appreciate your time. I know you got a lot of things to do today, tomorrow. Are you going back to Florida?
I am not going back to Florida. I think I might go back if this thing ends up going all the way. But for Game 5, I'm going to hunker down here in Edmonton.
All right. Well, we appreciate your time. Have a great day. I hope we get to talk to you after another Oiler win. You're the best, and keep up the great work.
See ya, boys.
So, yeah, that was awesome. One thing you mentioned, Colby, that I did also want to dive deeper into was the Bennett Tkachuk thing, because I tweeted it out on Saturday night, and I was not expecting the response that I got. But when I called those two fucks, I meant it in a good way. And you know what I'm saying, right? Like, when you're down 5-1, you can't just roll over and let a team.
No, I thought, listen,
Yeah.
And I don't know if Tyler's still if he's still here with us or he's moved on. I know he's got a number of shows to do today, but I don't agree with the fact that Florida came unglued as far as that's the way that they reacted. I think that, Florida made, again, we could go through some of the goals and talk about some of the goals. I mean, we don't really have to. I think that would be a little bit boring, but whether it was just getting caught, whether on the on the Nurse goal, you've got, Ekblad and OEL backing in. You've got Forsling gets caught on the wall. Ekblad gets caught up the ice on the McDavid goal. You get on the Holloway goal, Ekblad gets caught, flat-footed. And then Forsling doesn't pick up the guy's stick. Like, they were all these little, just like you're like 1 second too late types of errors, right? So I think Florida, maybe their structure came a little bit unglued, but what Bennett and Tkachuk did is what I would expect them to do. Like, okay, like we're gonna make you feel this game because you're not feeling it on the score sheet. And when you called Bennett and Tkachuk fucks, I agreed. Like,
you also know me, like, you know where it was coming from.
But I actually thought you were giving them like a compliment. Like, those guys do play as fucks. Like, they're hard to play against. Like, they're pricks on the ice. And we had this big debate last week, and then we put it on social media, and it was very, some people thought you were smoking drugs, but mostly the Rangers fans told me how I don't know anything about hockey, which is their favorite thing to tell me. But look, these are high-end skilled players. There's a difference between being high-end skilled and being finesse. Nobody's going to call Matthew Tkachuk a finesse player, but heavy skill is still skill. You could be an elite level, heavy skilled forward like Matthew.
We're really doing this again?
Or an elite level, heavy skilled forward like Barkov is, and still play with fuck you, and still play with sandpaper, and still play with grit. It's why Matthew Tkachuk, and for that matter, a guy like Brady Tkachuk, or a guy like, Barkov or whatever, like, these guys are extremely valuable this time of year because they can play any way you need them to play. If you want to get finesse, they can do it. If you want to get mean and heavy, they can do it. If you want to, slug it out and have a war of attrition along the walls, they can do it. If it's got to be special teams, penalty kill, power play, they can do it, right? And so, a guy like Matthew Tkachuk and really Sam Bennett, for that matter, who can do just about anything you'd ask him to do and play anywhere in a lineup you'd ask him to play, calling them what you did, I took it as like you're saying, like, these guys are awful to play against. Like, you're miserable if you're the other team and you have to play against
the fucks guys. You're saying.
Yeah, like, you got to go against these guys for 2 weeks every other day. Like, that sucks. These guys make it miserable on you. And that's why, again, I want this series to continue, but I don't think it's going to. I really don't. And I want to be wrong, but I'm not willing to forget who the Florida Panthers are because of one game where they were just off, right? Like, they didn't execute. Their reads were off. Like, to me, that's not something they're going to do again. And Bob's not going to let in a couple of softies. And, Forsling's gap and Ekblad's gap and OEL, and they're not going to have horrible gaps. And one thing I noticed is yes, the gaps for the decor of the Florida Panthers overall were not good. They were backing in, they were giving up the blue line, and that's not always just on the defense, right? One thing that allows you to have a really good gap is back pressure from your forwards. Forget F3, just back pressure. F3, once you get into the zone, Johnny, right? But back pressure. If you back pressure as hard as Florida does, you watch them. They turn a puck over in the offensive zone, or there's a broken play, head down, back hard. Everybody's communicating. It's really well done. And that usually allows guys like Forsling and Ekblad to smother plays at the blue line. And how many goals did we see off the rush the other night? Whether the Nurse play was the second wave of attack, McLeod.
That's a rush play. It's a drop pass.
But the McLeod plays a second wave of attack. The Holloway goals both come off the rush. And when do you see Florida backing in like that? When do you see them giving up 5 to 7 feet into their defensive zone. You just don't see that. And I don't expect that we're going to see that again. I really don't. And I hope I'm wrong, and I hope the series gets extended, and I would love to see it get extended. It'd be great for our show to have more games to talk about and not have to start going into off-season mode early. Like, I was worried we might be in off-season mode today.
Yeah.
I was worried about that. But we'll see. That's why they have to play. That's why they have to play the game, and that's where the pressure is going to mount, right? For Florida, the pressure continues. For Edmonton, anybody who says like Edmonton isn't feeling the pressure, it's all on Florida, that's bullshit too.
Yeah.
Right. If you're Edmonton,
they're still competing for the Stanley Cup.
You're a couple of bad shifts away, or 1 or 2 turnovers away from your season being over, from you playing until the end of June and having nothing to show for it. So we'll see what this continues to bring. We'll have Frank on to talk tomorrow. We'll talk and see if we can try to get Goldie. I was texting with Goldie at a miserable travel day getting to Edmonton the other day. So we'll see if we can't re-engage with him for, an appearance on the show later this week. But look, the Edmonton Oilers live to fight another day. And we, the hockey community have NHL playoff games that we continue to get to talk about.
It was a good point that you made, though, too. And if there's one thing we've learned in these playoffs, it's true that momentum doesn't really shift from game to game. And even against Florida, sometimes it doesn't even move period to period, right? Like, we've seen periods where, Florida looks like they're being outplayed, and then they come back and dominate the play the entire time. Same thing with the Oilers, right? You think back to that Dallas series, there were so many games where one period Edmonton is on fire, the next period they're on their heels the entire time. I forget which game it was against Dallas. I think Edmonton maybe had the 2-0 lead, or they blew it, or they came back from down 2-0. But either way, like, I think this game 5, Florida, we'll see what we always see from the Florida Panthers. But I do think there's something to be said about what that game did for the Oilers. They're now going into Florida and they're feeling probably the most confident they've felt through the first 4 games. There's no denying that. So I think, while Florida, we won't expect the same kind of result, or I don't want to say effort, but I guess maybe mistakes from them, Edmonton will have a lot of fire. And I think that's important for them, going into this game. But there was one other thing I wanted to bring up, but now I'm blanking on it. My brain kind of got lost there in what I was saying. If it comes back to me, I'll remember. But any thoughts or any more thoughts on that game before we kind of move on to our next things here?
No.
All right. So that'll do it for the Game 4 conversation, which was actually brought to you by Parasso, the most complete choice for shaving and beard care, made in Italy since 1948. Parasso has been a staple of Italian culture and barbershops globally for 4 generations. So get 15% off at parasso-usa.com with our promo code Hockey15, in all caps, Hockey15. There was some other news around the NHL over the weekend. If you want to get into that stuff briefly, Kobe, we can talk about it.
Let's start with your New York Rangers.
Yeah, I was going to go right into it.
Let's start with it. What do you think about that Kakko signing? I mean, I think a lot of Rangers fans, you included, think that he maybe isn't going to be a Ranger next year. I feel like I've heard you say, maybe I don't want to misquote you, but where do you fall on that signing?
I didn't, if you had asked me if I thought Kakko would be a Ranger next year, I would have said no. And I still think it's possible for him to not be a Ranger. I mean, now people know what they're trading for and the price they're getting. If they are trading him, they could still be shopping him at $2.4 million a year. It's a 1-year contract. So I don't think that takes the trade talks off the table. But I am also happy for Kaapo Kakko. Like, he's a guy that I really enjoyed talking to all year. And I know I was hard on him this season because I expected a lot more. And again, he also went through a really difficult injury. He looked like he had a season-ending injury in November. His leg looked like it fully snapped, and he did come back, and he kind of took on that third-line role. Was he exceptional at it? No. Was he fine with it? Yeah, I think he was fine. But again, it's a guy where opportunity after opportunity, and he hasn't really come through with it. One thing he said on breakup day was that he can't say he didn't get the chance with Zibanejad and Kreider. They just couldn't make it work this year. But either way, I am happy for the individual and the person that he got a deal done for 1 year. It's one last shot, and if it doesn't work, people know exactly what they're trading for and the price they're getting him at. What do you think of it?
I mean, look, you're not going to let him walk for nothing.
No.
He signs for $2.4 million, which is his qualifying offer. I mean, that's what happens when you're a restricted free agent. A team can qualify you, which means you get, I forget if the number's 10 or 15% raise, something like that. It's cut and dry. You don't see guys usually accepting qualifying offers, especially full-time NHL players, although he has, more that he obviously needs to continue to prove. But I think it's a fine deal. I think they'll still look to probably move on for him. Because I just don't think they're getting it from him, and maybe they can find a guy similar to him that hasn't worked out. Look, it's always hard when you're the second overall pick, but I said this to you 4 months ago. It's time to stop looking at him as the second overall pick. He's now the guy who's played however many games. I didn't look up his stats or his numbers before we started the show. But once you've played 250 or 300 games in the league, and I've said this about Lafreniere as well, like that's who you are. You're not your draft status anymore, right? You've got a big enough book, whether you're young or not. And as long as you're trending in the right direction, he hasn't really done that. He's kind of flatlined, and maybe he's just a third line, fourth line player in the NHL.
I don't know. I think he'd find success somewhere else. I still do believe.
And why do you think that?
Because I think when
hold on, it's not like he hasn't been given opportunity. He played on first lines. He's been, why do you just assume he's going to go and have success elsewhere?
I didn't assume. I said I think he could. I think he has a higher
ceiling
than what he's doing.
Yeah.
No, and I was going to answer it, but you challenged me right after I even just fucking breathed, which you do. But I've seen moments where Kakko's confidence is high, and I think that's his biggest crutch right now in his career is that when he is confident, you notice it, and when he's not confident, it's very loud. And sometimes guys, when they're not confident, they can kind of get by quietly when they're not feeling it. When Kakko's not confident, it's obvious. And that's something that, Colby as a player, when things are going right, you feel like you can do anything in the world. And there were moments, maybe not this year, but last year, he was a play driver. Like he was the go-to guy, at certain points with Zibanejad and Kreider. He had a lot of good moments with them to start last season that you kind of thought would carry into this year, but they didn't. And Gallant always would put him with Lafreniere and Hedl whenever he needed a line that he can count on. He put the kid line together. And that was another line where Kakko did well on, but for whatever reason this year, it just wasn't there. But when I've seen Kakko at his most confident, he's a very effective player. It just, it wasn't there this year. And if he could find that confidence, maybe somewhere else where he's given a lot of leeway or a longer leash. And I'm not saying he wasn't given that this year.
I don't think very effective is necessarily, I think that might be a slight exaggeration, but I think you got to remember something. When you pay a player $2 million, you have to look at production versus salary, right? Like what is the value of this player? And you're not giving him a lot of money. I mean, $2.4 million is what percentage of the cap? It's a very, very low number.
Less than Barclay Goodrow.
Exactly. So, but I think Barclay Goodrow should hopefully have quieted you guys all down with the way that he's played in the playoffs and the fact that he's won a Stanley Cup and, blah, blah, blah. But,
great.
I think, for if you could get 15 goals from Kakko at $2.5 million or $2.4 million, and he can chip in another 15 assists. If he can score you 25 to 35 points at $2.4 million, like, okay, you're getting some value for that number. I think you always stop looking at him as a second overall pick and start looking at him as a $2 million forward in the NHL. And I think maybe that'll readjust your, what you think that he should be doing and bringing to the table. So the other one from this weekend was Jalen Chatfield gets 3 years at $3 million a piece. I did think it was interesting. Somebody on social media, I don't know if it was a writer, broadcaster, whatever, called him an elite third pair defenseman. I was a little bothered by that, as you know, and you could probably figure out why. Elite third pair defenseman.
I don't know if those exist.
That's a pretty fucking ridiculous thing to say, in my opinion.
Maybe an impactful third pair defenseman.
I think Chatfield is a good third pair defenseman who can kill penalties and who understands his role. And I think you could almost draw some similarities to the third pair of the Florida Panthers. Whether you're looking at, Ekman Larson and Kulikov, and those guys make like 1.5 to 2.5 is their salary range. And those are guys who are probably going to get nice raises this offseason. Whether they want to stay in Florida and take less, we'll find out. But, you do need to have a good third pair. I think Chatfield is a good third pair defenseman. And look, $3 million, I think is it's a decent amount for a third pair guy. I think you'd rather see your third pair defenseman like what Bill Zito has going on in Florida, where they're making, again, OEL is a little bit of a different story. He's got a buyout. He's getting paid by multiple teams. He goes to Florida. He takes a prove it deal at, I think, 1.5 or something like that. And then Kulikov, I think's number is 2.5 or 2.25 AAV. I forget exactly. And I know I'm close enough, so I'm not going to bother looking it up.
I'll find that for you
if you want to, but I think those would be more sweet spot numbers for a third pair defenseman, because I don't think Chatfield is a guy who you're moving up, right? I don't think you're going to put him with some elite puck mover in your top four, although maybe they have plans we don't know about. But I do think he's a big, strong guy who skates well, and again, he's a good third pair defenseman. If he's on your third pair, you have a good decor. And Carolina, I know they didn't have Pesce during the playoffs, and they probably won't have Pesce next year because he's a free agent, but they do. Okay. So 1.5 for Kulikov and 2.5 for OEL. So I know that I was, I was right in the mix there with those guys, but I do think it's a fine signing. It might be a little bit too much, but I think that, Rod Brind'Amour knows what he likes, knows what he needs. It sounds like Rod Brind'Amour is pretty involved in these types of decisions now, and he must have been comfortable with this contract.
Yeah, I mean, Chatfield, listen, I think he's a perfect like Carolina Hurricane style player, right? And I think he fits the mold that they have there. $3 million is a lot, though. I still think. What do you make of that? I know you kind of just touched on it a little bit, but I don't know if I would call that necessarily.
I know you weren't listening to me because you were looking.
Well, I was trying to find it. Yeah.
I just said the same thing. I said I think the sweet spot is more what Florida has going on with 1.5 and 2.5, where their third pair, makes $4 million total.
Okay.
And I think you always want to be careful, and you see the difference between the third pair and the bottom pairs of Edmonton and Florida. And again, I know we're coming off a game where Edmonton was great and the Florida decor looked human, but all playoff long, we've talked about how good the decor is and how there's no weak spot on the back end of Florida, and how you're not as worried about matchups because they're just so deep. And there's no $900,000 defenseman. There's no league minimum guy. And I know sometimes you get that with a rookie, but everybody's kind of getting paid where they're at. Montour's underpaid, and that decor is going to look different next year because Montour, Ekman Larson, and Kulikov are all free agents, and Montour is going to get a big payday. So it's not going to look the same next year. And Forsling's going up. He already got his extension that kicks in next year. But again, you got to get the timing and you got to get things right. And Florida has, where that's where you're right. I think a third pair defenseman making $3 million, it might be a little bit much. So maybe they have plans to elevate him up. Slavin's got to get done in Carolina. That's got to be a massive priority to get him on an 8-year extension and let him finish his career there. But we'll see how these things pan out. And we've got some comedy in the chat how Darnell Nurse is an elite third pair defenseman. Look, I don't know if I would use the word elite, and I know you're just making a joke in the chat, but it was just funny to see someone call Chatfield an elite third pair defenseman. I think don't you know how that makes the hair on my arm stand up when someone wants to throw elite with a third pair player. That's not it. So other news before we kind of move along here and we get to our Betway bet of the day.
I don't think we need to spend too much time talking about Alexander Steen.
Everybody saw it. He's going to take over for Armstrong. Armstrong's going to move into the president role. There's been whispers about Armstrong having looked at the Leafs job and some other places. It sounds like he's staying put. The hockey world loves Alex Steen. I've heard great things about him. I even played against him. Good for him. I have no opinion on this at the moment, Johnny. I'm guessing you don't either.
No.
I'd rather spend our last couple of minutes talking about the Utah Hockey Club.
I agree.
And in my opinion, the overreaction from everybody on this, everybody in the hockey world losing their mind over this. A lot of people don't even realize that this is just going to be for year one.
Yeah.
They never committed to being Utah Hockey Club. I don't think they'll stay as Utah Hockey Club. That's just not how we do it here. I'm not that bothered by the jerseys.
I thought you liked the Utah Hockey Club name, though, didn't you not?
I mean, it's fine. Like, it is what it is. But I'm not as bothered by the jerseys. I didn't mind the circle logo. I think light blue and black looks cool together. Like, again, this team and this situation is rare. And I think you get one chance to come up with what your feel is going to be for the next 15 or 20 years, probably. And is going to set your franchise up. And I don't think that's a process that you want to rush. And so I think doing something basic, doing something with, in my opinion, I like the color schemes. I'm not complaining about the black jerseys like everybody else, but I'm not bothered by this like everybody else is.
Were there that much complaints?
Oh yeah. I see
Really?
a lot of people like freaking out about it online. Yeah. Vic is chiming in here telling us like people are losing their shit over this.
Believe it or not, I didn't actually spend that much time on social media this weekend. It was nice to step away for a bit, but I didn't. Yeah, I mean, I looked at this as, all right, like it's 1 year, right? Like you said, they didn't commit to it. I don't know if I love like the diagonal lettering. I feel like, I mean, this is just my Ranger fan thing. I feel like the Rangers kind of did that, and now the Canes even have a jersey that does that, and now Utah.
Listen, the Avalanche have one that says Colorado. Don't make this about the Rangers for
once.
It's
an original 6 jersey that I feel like a lot of teams are now kind of.
Don't make this about them.
I don't think I'm wrong in thinking that, though.
Yeah,
come up with your own fucking design.
Listen, I think that you'll do this for year one, and then they'll have the opportunity to work through branding. Look, I also think the whole naming bracket tournament thing is dumb, because I think at the end of the day, if the owner doesn't like the one that wins, they're just going to lie and say a different one won. Like it's not like there's transparency with the voting other than saying that they're taking the fan vote. So give them ample time to get this stuff all together. You want to make sure that you bring in the right people, and you here's the thing. You put your branding together, and then you want to let it breathe, and then you want to be able to say, all right, we like this, and then meet in a week. Do you still like it? How many times, Johnny, have you written something and then maybe you went back to it 3 hours later and you're like, I don't like the way this sounds, I want to change it, right? Mm-hmm. That's kind of how the creative process works. So I think them taking their time is smart. Could they maybe have done a little bit better or a little bit more creative on the jersey? Sure. But again, I think the reaction is just, it's a major overreaction for people.
Well, it's just passion. It's passionate hockey fans. And also, like, Utah didn't have that much time, right? Like, this all kind of happened quickly. I feel like it's not like they had.
Not that you feel like this did happen very quickly. Like, this is not, Vegas and Seattle had years to put this stuff together, years to put these things together. And look, I can tell you this. I didn't like the Vegas Golden Knights when they first came out. I didn't like the Kraken when that first came out. It's all grown on me. I remember not liking it when the Columbus Blue Jackets were the expansion team. I was like, Blue Jackets? That seems kind of Now it's normal, right? Yeah. Like it'll take some time. So, let them focus on the draft. Let them focus on free agency. Again, Ryan Smith is a billionaire, as people are mentioning in the chat. He's not a dummy. The guy obviously knows what he's doing to have the cash and the finance and the structure set up to pull this off as quick as he did. So let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's see how this plays out. Let them do what they got to do in year one. And then we will revisit this conversation in year two when their actual branding comes out.
I actually want to address a comment though from Big E. He said, does Utah like hockey or just have money? My college roommate at Mercer is actually Garrett Metcalf, grew up in Utah and played for the Utah Grizzlies in the East Coast League. So he's fired up that they have a team coming, and I've talked to him multiple times about it and what it's going to do just for youth hockey out there. Because when he was growing up playing hockey, like he had to leave Utah. He went to Colorado to play his youth hockey for the I think the Rampage, right? Colorado Rampage they're called, or T-Birds maybe. But
there's Thunderbirds, there's Rampage.
Yeah, I think he did both. But Utah is a market. Like the Utah Grizzlies had, I think, 7,000 people at their games and like a 10,000 seat arena. Like, I know that's not a lot, but it's the East Coast League, so that's like a pretty good crowd for the coast. And I think when they have an NHL team there, it's going to be great. And these cities that maybe don't have hockey experience, like were we calling Seattle a hockey city before they got the Kraken?
No.
Like, but they had the Western Hockey League team there that I know drew a good crowd. But their NHL crowd does great because people want to see professional athletes play. And I think Utah will become, a pretty strong hockey city after, 1 year, 1 month. It's going to be quick. People love hockey.
Well, and they've already done great with their season tickets. Like, they're going to be okay. It's already a sports market. They've been wanting a team for a long time. It's a cold weather climate. That always helps, right? Let's not kid ourselves.
Yeah.
Obviously, yes, there's skiing, but it works in Colorado. I think it'll be similar in Utah, the way that it works. So, All right, Johnny, look, we're running to the edge of our time here. One thing we do want to just mention to you guys is if you haven't liked this episode, throw us a like. If you're enjoying it, leave a comment, leave a rating. If you're audio only on Spotify, podcasts, Apple Podcasts, wherever, Amazon, wherever you get your podcasts, make sure you're continuing to download the episodes. We're deep into figuring out what the show looks like for next year. We're having a lot of conversations about doing 5 days a week in the playoffs next year. Johnny's going to be in Vegas for the draft, so we're going to have a little bit of he'll be in Vegas, I'll be at home. We're working on securing some of the higher end talented players to come on our show leading up to the draft. Next week, we might have a show on Friday, day of the draft. TBD, we're working on that schedule. We'll keep you guys updated as we start to move through this week, but I just can't emphasize enough that if you are enjoying our show and you do come every day, we appreciate the way you guys have been liking our episodes. It's helping our audience grow. It's putting us in front of new people. Subscribe to the DFO YouTube channel. You guys have been great about that. The growth in the last 2 weeks alone has been really good. There's content all day with DFO Live at noon, fantasy hockey, starting goalies with Carter Hutton. We pretty much run throughout the day. And then, obviously Nation Network has a whole host of family shows with Oilers Nation and such. So smash that like button. We appreciate it. It helps big time with our advertisers and our visibility, which helps our, Johnny and I continue to be able to do this. The last thing we're going to get into today is our Betway bet of the day. Still running the same promotion that we've been telling you guys about for months. It's a free $200 bet on your first bet. Scan the QR code on the screen. That will give you the $200 opportunity. Make a bet on your first bet up to 200. You'll get reimbursed. You can bet 1,000. You can bet 50, whatever you're comfortable on. If it doesn't hit, you'll get that reimbursed. Hopefully it hits and it's a moot point. And what we're going to do here is we're going to take a look at some of the futures and where we think potentially there could be some value. Not looking real comfortable either way here. Obviously, the Florida Panthers in serious control of this series. Minus 900. It's 3-1. It's a mountain to climb back. We heard from Tyler why he thinks they can. I've said I don't foresee it happening, although I do hope this thing gets to 7. I'm not sure where I would go here, Johnny. I'd probably sit this one out. But if you do believe in the Edmonton Oilers, all right, and you do think there's a chance to come back, where I think the better value would be on the Conn Smythe. And it would be Connor McDavid at plus 700. Because, don't forget, McDavid just broke a Wayne Gretzky playoff record, okay? A Wayne Gretzky playoff record, I repeat. And anytime you do that, that puts you in rarefied air for a playoff performance. And so I think that plus 700, there's some real value there because I think if this series does push deeper and deeper, I think it's going to be hard for it to not be Connor McDavid, right? We saw Bob get lit up the other game. Does that kind of maybe put Barkov ahead of him? So that's where I think the real value would be on McDavid or even potentially Barkov right now, if you're still believing in Florida and the Florida Panthers to win. So we'll talk more about, tomorrow's game tomorrow and what we think you should be looking at for tomorrow. But that's where the value lies right now with Betway. Get involved with those guys. Again, the more you guys engage with our sponsors, the more they want to do with us. Proraso has just been loving the relationship and they want to be involved again next year. Our buddies at Out West, continue to hook us up with great clothes because you guys continue to, purchase stuff from Out West and show people that you actually believe us. And look, it's a great product. If we have a sponsor that I think is a shitty product, I'm not going to shit on them, but I'm certainly not going to sit here and talk about them, freewheelingly. We're going to do our read, we're going to get out of it, and we're going to move on, right? So that's how you kind of know whether we really truly believe in the product or not. You see Johnny's pretty freshly shaven sideburns. He probably had a bunch of dates this weekend, so we wanted to get that baby face going for the weekend. So, Johnny, final word.
I mean, you just did a great job closing out the show. I was just going to say with the Conn Smythe thing, I think McDavid, even if Florida wins Game 5, could still potentially get it. It's the playoff MVP. Guys 2 points away from 40, 38 points in 22 games. Like, it's pretty fucking insane. 7 points in 4 games in the final. I think that would be the best way to go if you're looking to bet this series still.
And the last thing I want to say that I forgot to mention, and Vic just reminded me of, next week, our schedule is going to be wacky, okay? Johnny's going to be in Vegas, so we're not going to be doing a 9 a.m. show while Johnny's, in Vegas. That'll be 6 a.m. in Vegas. Johnny's probably going to be coming home back to his hotel at 6 a.m. when he's out in Vegas. So we also do want to.
I'm not a Vegas guy.
We do want to be able to get players. Like, we're going to work on getting Cole Hudson. We're going to try to get Yzerman. We're going to maybe be able to get Celebrini. We're going to work on some of these guys for next week. And so if we're going to get them, the show's going to have to be later. We're not going to ask them to come on at 6 a.m. So as the week progresses, we will give you guys a little bit more of an idea of the exact schedule. We will, keep you guys updated. We're kind of working through that. I know Johnny's got his travel booked now. And I'm going to be out of town this week, but we'll still be doing our shows. Like I said in the beginning of the show, my background will look different come Wednesday. We got a little family trip down to Florida, see the rest of my family, but we will keep you guys updated, but just keep it in the back of your mind. Next week's going to be weird. And as we push closer to the draft, we'll let you guys kind of know exactly where we're heading for the summer and this and that, because we are getting closer to finalizing those things along with, start dates for next season. So stick with us on that. Vic, good job producing today. Tyler Yaremchuk was great. We will have Frank Saravalli on with us tomorrow, he's pinballing back and forth. So he's probably got some fun travel to Florida. And then, we'll see if he's either coming back to Philly or he's going back to Edmonton for a Game 6. TBD on that. Johnny, we'll talk a little bit later today.
I got one more question for you before we wrap it up.
You have something to say.
Well, we always talk about my dating life, my love life on here. Do you have anything special planned for your wife's birthday today? You gonna do anything nice for her? You get her flowers or anything?
I did not get her
Kobe's lover side. I
did not get her flowers, but I did get her a nice present, in which I already gave her.
Nice.
I got her. I don't really want to go into exactly what I got her, but we're gonna go to dinner tonight. She actually doesn't know this, so I'm hoping she doesn't. She's not watching the show. I think she's out on a walk with my daughter, but she thinks just her and I are going to dinner tonight. But we've got a group of friends that are coming to dinner tonight as well. She definitely wouldn't expect that on a Monday night, especially because all my friends have kids. I'm the asshole that's asking people to go out to dinner at 8 p.m. on a Monday night with kids. But I told them I'll pay for dinner, so at least you're getting a good free meal out of me. So that's the plan tonight. Like I said, I woke her up. I actually gave my daughter the little box with the present and the card, and it was like in a bow tie, and she carried it into the bedroom. By the time it got to my wife, it was the bow tie was she was holding the bow tie and the box, but it's all right because she's so little and cute, So she was happy. She liked it. they're sparkly. They're already in her ears. They were, a nice heavy carrot weight. So she's happy. We'll just leave it there.
Won't go into it, then fully goes into it.
We'll just leave it there. Okay. Yeah, we'll leave it there. That was the first thing my friend said to me when I said I was going to get a birthday present for my wife. He said, "Is it shiny?" I said, "It's always shiny."
Mm-hmm. It's all those retweets.
Right. Keep growing the show, baby.
Yeah. Just wanted to hear Colby's lover side. I think our listeners deserve that too. But
well, you could see over my shoulder, I have, the picture of the three of us. You can kind of see it. It's a book actually that I had made for my wife that she gave back to me to put on the shelf because it's nice. It's got all pictures from my daughter's like first year and pictures of the three of us and when she was born and, just kind of the journey of becoming new parents. So, dude, life happens, man.
Yeah.
Families are growing. I at a later date, I'll share more news. I'll make it off-season news, but this is the phase I'm in right now, Johnny.
Yeah, we got a funny comment, I guess. Vic just said Weinberg. What do you say? Weinberg 85 woke her up by singing the national anthem.
Not today. No, she not her. I can't sing it to her. Only to my daughter. I can only sing to my daughter.
That is really funny. Good stuff, Weinberg. We'll end on that note. Everyone's in a great mood. We'll be back tomorrow 9 a.m. Thank you to the chat. Thank you to Vic. We love you all and enjoy a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Saravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.